Adam did his best to avoid sleep as he collapsed into his bed. Having finished his suit familiarization with Popper less than an hour ago, he was sufficiently tired. Her interpretation of familiarization involved Adam running for nearly 2 hours, jumping onto low rooftops, and rapidly donning and dropping his armor. He had found the armor drop feature of tapping the same button to achieve the small electromagnets 3 times in rapid succession rather entertaining. If he was being honest. At least, that is, until the NCO had him doing it well into the hundreds of times, many of them while moving or accomplishing another objective. He sat up reluctantly. Stripping out of his armor, he set it atop his dresser. Adam took a moment to admire Stip's handiwork on his helmet, running a finger across the blue paint. He imagined the diminutive woman eagerly working away on it in her room, clad in the sports bra and panties he had seen her wear in the frigate's pod bay. The image gave him a brief sense of butterflies, confusing even to him. She had warmed significantly to his presence since the operation in Cheyenne, where they had fled nuclear radiation, fought hostile soldiers, and served as a helicopter sniper team together. Well, he supposed. Not exactly a helicopter per se, but same concept, right? Shaking the image of the nearly naked Stip from his mind, he made tracks to take a cold shower. When he emerged, towel around his waist, his room was no longer empty. Ferry sat in his bed, clad in a white, flame blouse that ended with a piece of elastic, pulling the number snug around her muscled abdomen just below the belly button. Below that she wore a pair of black leggings, accented by a strip of vibrant blue on the outside of each leg. Adam took a moment to process as his blood quickly left his brain. He'd only ever seen her in uniform or her underclothes, and she looked stunning done up like this. He returned his eyes to her face, her hair spilling down over her shoulders to her upper back. "You like?" she asked, flashing him a winning smile while blushing a deep blue. "I got this on Earth while I was off duty in the Green Zone. I thought you'd appreciate a slice of home." Yeah, I really do," he said, trying to kickstart his malfunctioning upper brain. "Why all done up?" "Well, I figure since tomorrow's the start of Shell, we should have our date night tonight," she replied, smiling hopefully. "Oh, sure," he hesitated. "Do you want to leave now?" "Well, we can't just yet," she said, shaking her head. "We have to go to a Shell cautionary briefing. One too many of the off-duty Marines causing chaos in town made base command decide to force each unit commander to yell at us about not starting shit before we're allowed to head out." Huh, thought Adam. I guess even the Imperium isn't immune from Friday's safety briefs. He walked to his dresser, pulling out one of the pants he had brought with Ferry on their trip to the mall, a pair of boxers, one of his black t-shirts, and a pair of socks. He pulled his towel off and threw it at the leering Ferrilla playfully. Having finished dressing his lower half, being ogled by his girlfriend the entire time, he moved to pull his shirt over his head. Said Ferry chidingly. "You promised." Adam winced internally, having now remembered yesterday's promise to wear this skimpy crop top out of his and Ferry's evening's activities. Sighing, he returned his t-shirt to its place within the drawer, and pulled free the sleeveless black number. He pulled it over his head, struggling to line up his head with the hole. Now dressed in the less than comfortable top, he turned to his teammate. "How do I look?" he deadpanned, nonplussed to be wearing the item. Good enough to eat," she replied, clearly taking a moment to recalibrate after the visage that sent her female brain, scrambling to remember that words were, in fact, a thing. "I feel wrong," he said, shrugging his shoulders, cheeks rapidly heating. No, you look great. Trust me, every girl at the restaurant is going to be so jealous of me," she said, grinning predatorily at him. He understood the emotion, but decided to fuck with her anyway. "Oh, so I'm just arm candy to make the other girls jealous then?" he said, trying to maintain a neutral expression. "No, that's not what I meant. I just mean you look really good, and they're all going to want you. But you'll be mine. You're not my property, but, like..." Adam couldn't hold his expression at the panicked and flustered alien woman. The visceral dichotomy of having seen her tear through waves of men up a mountainside while wounded contrasted too hard with the almost innocent-sounding beauty on his bed. "I'm just fucking with you, Ferry," he said, in between bursts of laughter. "I get the feeling." "You do?" she asked, seemingly genuinely confused. "Yeah. I'd be lying if I didn't buy my dates in the past cute outfits for the exact same reason," he shrugged before continuing. "Not gonna lie, it feels a little weird being on the other side of things, but it'd be like that sometimes." He looked the beautiful woman in front of him in the eyes for a few seconds, both their breathing increasing rapidly as they enjoyed the other's gaze. He walked over to her, lifted her from the bed, and pulled her down for a deep kiss. The moments dragged on as the two stood locked to each other, neither being willing to break the embrace. Adam made the hard choice. We have a briefing to get to, he sighed, pulling away from the large woman's embrace. Yeah, she said, with a sigh of her own. Adam turned and led Ferry out of his room, stopping when he realised he didn't actually know where they were going. He shot a questioning gaze at Ferry, who laughed, took his hand in hers, and led him out of the hallway. 20 minutes later, they sat in a small briefing room that was in a hall near the captain's office. The denizens of the room, save for Popper, were doing their absolute best to avoid staring at the couple. Popper, standing in the front of the room, had been her absolutely unsubtle self upon seeing Adam dressed like this. She had walked into the room, seen him and Ferry, and instantly run the gauntlet of emotions from shock to pure chaotic energy. She had audibly snapped a photo of the couple with her omnipad when she arrived at the front of the room, muttering something about a scrapbook. Even Classy had, upon arriving at the room, laughed, and sent Popper a small sum of money over the device, clearly having lost a bet. I hate you, grumped Adam, arms folded over his chest, eliciting a laugh from the room. Before anything further could be said, the door opened and Grim walked in. All right, ladies, you already know the drill, don't... She trailed off, eyes bulging at the scantily clad member of her unit. Adam, what the fuck are you wearing? Couldn't tell you, boss. Ask her, he said, pointing a thumb at the now blushing Ferry. Ferry, I swear by the goddess, could you have steered in towards something more modest? She said, massaging her temples with a thumb and forefinger. He's a fucking commando, not some cheap stiffy from a dive bar. Could be worse, Captain, chimed Popper jovially. Could be going topless. This remark earned a withering glare from the captain before the officer in question sighed deeply. Moving on, the captain said, sounding defeated. You all know the basics. Don't add or subtract from the population. Don't start any fights with the locals, no matter how stupid they sound. If you're not taking public transportation, don't get so fucked up that I have to come get you from the militia office. Oh, thought Adam, reconsidering his earlier thoughts on the militia. Maybe to them it's just cops by any other name. Okay, everyone, fuck off. And make sure you're home in time for the beginning of the week. We're going to be running Adam through the sim pods with us, so he gets familiarised with how we operate before he ships out. Dismissed. Everyone in the room rose to their feet and began to file out of the doorway for their weekend activities, before Grim called to the couple. Adam, Ferry, a moment. They turned and approached their commanding officer in unison. Okay, Ferry, I need you to make sure that yourself and Adam stay in the nicer parts of town. No dive bars or anything like that. You're both competent fighters, but against a group of women with the wrong intentions, you're not going to have a nice time, regardless of who comes out on top. Clear? Crystal, ma'am, replied Adam. Don't worry, I'm taking him to the Imperial Standard. Not something like the dried clam, Fuller assured Grim. Oh, thank fuck. Grim let out a deep breath. That's a relief. Listen, I don't have any plans for tonight, so if you two end up in trouble, call me. You have my info, Ferry, don't hesitate. If it feels off, get the fuck out of there. I'll handle any fallout. It's fine, Dad. We're adults after all, said Ferry sarcastically. Adam, on the other hand, was quietly thankful to have the older woman on call. He knew he was going to be something of a topic of conversation for the surrounding tables because of his heritage, regardless of how he dressed or acted. Grim nodded, satisfied with her line of questioning, and left the couple in the room. Shortly after she left, Adam turned to Ferry. Shall we? The trip to the restaurant had been uneventful, if short. Adam and Ferry had gone into a conversation about Turok's Order, with Adam explaining how the game seemed similar to ones in his homeworld. Ferry seemed decidedly interested at the prospect of a bunch of hunky warriors fighting each other on a beach when he talked about the D-Day scene in one of the games that had released pre-invasion. Adam had to mentally calm himself from her tone-deaf assessment of what had arguably been one of the greatest losses of life in the history of human conflict, but couldn't stay mad at the effervescent side of Ferry that had come out recently. They had received the usual stares, now laced with significantly more lust, on the ride over on the Chilvanti equivalent of a bus. Now at the restaurant, they waited a few minutes before the host took them to their seats, the sharply dressed male giving Adam a judgmental look that was clearly in regard to his outfit. When the waitress came to their table to take their drink order, her eyes nearly bulged out of her skull. The poor girl couldn't have been older than 17 by Adam's estimation, and was clearly out of her league talking to an older male like this. Do you have any beer? He asked. This seemed to trigger a subroutine in her brain, reactivating her ability to think. I don't know what that is, sir, she replied in a soft voice, turning her eyes over to Farilla. Adam, do you mind if I order for you? Farilla gave a sympathetic smile. I think I'll be able to pick things you like. Nah, fuck it. I'm the alien here. Show me what you got, he said with a smile, thankful for the lifeline that was being thrown his way. 2 blue growls, please, said Ferry with a smile, eliciting a nod from the server, who quickly made herself scarce. It's probably her first job, Frida chuckled, watching the poor teen go. I bet she hasn't even hit 11 years old yet. Shill years are 3 to every 5 of ours, right? Asked Adam before adding. So she's, 16 in human years? Sounds about right, yeah, she replied, furrowing her brow. Poor girl, said Adam with a smile. I remember when I was that age. There was this one girl in my class that I had a huge crush on, Stacey Connolly, and fuck, I could barely utter a word when she was in the room. There was a time when you couldn't talk to women? Ferry blinked in surprise. Yeah, I think everyone goes through it at some point. Pretty faces, teenage anxiety, and hormones going haywire are a recipe for disaster, he said with a chuckle, earning a decisive nod from Farilla. The server came back in short order with their drinks, which Adam looked at in a state of mild confusion for a second. The frothy blue mixture came in what appeared to be an alien attempt at a martini glass, if larger than normal, and smelled vaguely of blue raspberry. Putting it to his lips, he took a pensive sip, only to down half the glass in short order. It was fruity, and hid the alcohol dangerously well. Farilla grinned at him, and slammed back the majority of hers as well. When the time came for the pair to order, Adam let her order for him again. She placed an order for a Turok steak with an Atraxi sea sauce for him, and an order of calamari mash for herself. Shooting her a questioning look when the server left, he asked, Atraxi sea sauce? So how do I explain? She said, furrowing her brow. Atraxi seeds are used as a spice of many worlds. They give off a mild burning sensation that some people enjoy. A lot of high-end restaurants actually soak their meat in a solution with it before cooking. Oh, so it's like pepper then. Is that the black flaky stuff you guys seem to put on everything? Yeah, that's the stuff. We don't put it on everything, just the savoury shit, he said, mildly offended at her insinuation that all of his homeworld food had pepper on it. It is pretty similar, yeah, and you could have fooled me. I tried a few items at a restaurant in the Tijuana Green Zone a while back, and everything had it on it. Well, yeah, that's because... You know what, never mind. So tell me about your family, Ferry. You mentioned them in passing before, but never talked in depth. Ferry proceeded to practically tell him her life story, interrupted only by their food arriving. Adam enjoyed listening to her stories about their idyllic ranch and Nifil, while he enjoyed his steak, which tasted like a mishmash of honey and habanero. Apparently her father had been a nurse on Chill itself and was rather successful. Her biological mother was a Marine, and they met while on leave. His second wife, her other mother, as it were, was an agent of the interior he had patched up after an operation went sideways. They had apparently moved to the periphery after she pissed off someone high up, with Ferry's biological mum being discharged from the Marines shortly after. Pooling their money, they bought a ranch and a massive tract of land on Nifil. Her father was apparently unusual for a male, seeming to be a bit of a firecracker. He apparently had a sharp wit and a great love of the outdoors, unlike most males. He tried a bite or two of her meal while she talked, sometimes with her mouth full, and found that it tasted similar to mashed potatoes, if made from yams instead. Upon trying his food, however, he inhaled the entire thing in short order. As it turned out, steak was steak, regardless of origin. The slightly gamey meat reminded him faintly of antelope or venison, with a tangy, slightly sweet sauce that felt like a combination of A1 and cayenne pepper. Both finished with their meals. She paid their tab, and they returned to base, comfortably tipsy. Frey was about to return to her room, bidding Adam good night, when he asked, Hey, Fur? Want to sleep in my room tonight? She grinned widely and practically sprinted for his now open doorway. Adam laughed as she went. Empress, it was so nice sleeping next to you last night. I haven't said that one in ages, she said upon entering his dorm. She paused as she noticed his armour. Oh, by the stars. I thought this wasn't going to be here until one day. She picked up his helmet and ran her hand across the skull, smiling widely. I see Slip already worked her magic. Hey! He held up his hands in a gesture of innocence. It was like that when I got it. She shrugged and put the helmet back. I think I'm going to take a quick shower if you don't mind. I didn't get a chance this morning, she said, looking both hopeful and like she needed to cool off. We want to get your bed dirty, she finished with a wink. Adam rolled his eyes and smirked. Go ahead. I'll be here. She grinned and in one smooth motion pulled free her top. Her massive breasts spilled free, only feet from Adam, before she bent forward to remove her pants and undergarments in a fluid maneuver. Adam's body reacted predictably at the sudden stimuli as she gave him a lovely view, turning in short order to the bathroom door. With the room now empty, Adam sat in his bed, his mind going to his wife and her death. He was actively falling in love with a member of the species responsible for her demise, and a member of their special forces on top of that. Wait, he said, as a sudden realization hit him. I'm falling in love with her? Now focused on the new thought, Adam tried to piece together his shattered mind. He had called in airstrikes and mortar barrages before in combat, and once the fire had hit civilians that the Taliban were using as human shields. Was he really all that different from the invaders? Was he really spitting on his wife's shallow grave in the mountains by consorting with the enemy of humanity? Just then, a memory hit him. It was his grandfather's funeral, just after his 7th birthday. He had bawled for days when he got the news, barely being able to make it for his party without shedding tears. As his young body racked with sobs, his mother had held him close and spoke softly in his ear. "Oh, Malanky," she had whispered in her soft Russian accent, using the pet name that loosely translated to Little One. "The dead do not feel. They do not care as they slumber. To live our lives solely for their benefit is foolish. Life is for the living, my son." Life is for the living. Here he was, millions of miles away from his old home, and the troubles that existed there, with a beautiful, willing woman mere feet away from himself, separated only by a doorway. And yet here he sat, living his life for the ghosts of his past. For the men he had lost, the actions he had taken, and most importantly for his late wife. Rising to his feet, he took a deep breath and came to a decision. Stripping out of his clothes, he walked to the slightly ajar door, the sounds of running water emanating within. Life is for the living, damn it, he thought. And I'm going to live it.